Mom's boyfriend moved in with his daughter, and I was forced to share my room with her. At first, she acted sweet and innocent, but my money, clothes, and jewelry started disappearing one by one. Everyone told me I was paranoid, until I caught her on hidden camera stealing from me and my mom. I'm 19 and had been living at home to save money for college. My mom's dating life had been a revolving door since Dad left 3 years ago, but Richard seemed different. He was 45, charming in an expensive suit kind of way, and apparently wealthy based on his BMW and constant designer shopping bags. Mom was completely smitten from their very first coffee date. Richard worked in pharmaceutical sales and traveled frequently for business. He owned a house across town but claimed he was selling it to downsize and start fresh with Mom. His daughter Brittany had just turned 18 and graduated from some private high school. She was supposed to stay with us temporarily while she figured out her next steps. College applications, job hunting, finding her own apartment, all the normal things 18-year-olds do when transitioning to independence. That temporary arrangement became permanent the exact moment Richard's lease supposedly expired, and Mom invited him to move in completely. Suddenly, I was sharing my childhood bedroom with someone who looked at my belongings like items in a store she couldn't afford. Brittany was petite and blonde with practiced sweetness that immediately made me suspicious. She spoke in a soft voice and always said please and thank you. She complimented my room decoration and asked permission before touching anything. She offered to take the smaller bed and less closet space. Perfect houseguest behavior that should have made me grateful instead of wary, but something felt wrong from day one. It started with tiny things that could easily be explained away. My favorite chapstick disappeared from my dresser drawer overnight. When I asked Brittany about it, she looked genuinely puzzled and concerned. Are you sure you left it there? Maybe it fell behind the dresser. We moved the furniture and searched thoroughly. No chapstick anywhere. Brittany suggested I might have left it in my car or another room. She offered to help me look everywhere else in the house. We spent 20 minutes checking bathrooms, kitchen counters, coat pockets. Nothing. The next day, Brittany was wearing chapstick that looked suspiciously similar to my missing tube. When I mentioned the coincidence, she showed me a receipt from CVS. I bought this yesterday when I noticed you were looking for yours. We must have similar taste. The receipt was real and time-stamped. I felt foolish for being suspicious. But then my phone charger vanished overnight. I'd plugged it into the wall next to my bed Wednesday evening. Thursday morning it was gone. I asked everyone in the house systematically. Mom hadn't touched it. Richard claimed he wouldn't recognize my charger from anyone else's. Brittany offered to help me search and somehow found my charger tangled under her bed. It must have fallen down there when you were organizing cords. Sorry it got mixed up with my stuff. Her explanation sounded reasonable, but the timing felt suspicious. I started paying closer attention to my belongings and their exact locations. That's when I noticed my cash disappearing with mathematical precision. I'd had $43 in my wallet Monday morning, 2 20s and 3 singles from my weekend babysitting job. By Wednesday evening, only $18 remained. Perfect $25 theft. I asked Mom if she'd borrowed money from my wallet. She looked genuinely offended and reminded me that she'd never stolen from me in my entire life. When I mentioned the missing money to Brittany, she suggested I'd probably spent it throughout the week and forgotten. College expenses add up fast. Maybe you bought coffee or snacks without really thinking about it. She was probably right. Stress was making me forgetful about lots of things lately. But I decided to start tracking my spending more carefully to see where my money was actually going. I wrote down every purchase for the next week in my phone's notes app. Coffee, $4.50, lunch, $8.75, gas, 15 zeros, nothing unaccounted for. But another $20 disappeared from my wallet anyway. This time I was absolutely certain I hadn't spent it. The money had been there Tuesday night when I counted it and gone Wednesday morning when I checked again. I'd slept in the same room as the only other person who could have accessed my wallet during those hours. My makeup started vanishing next in a pattern that couldn't be explained by normal use or misplacement. Expensive foundation that I'd saved up to buy with 3 weeks of babysitting money. Mascara that was practically brand new. My favorite eyeshadow palette that had cost me $47. I confronted Brittany directly this time, abandoning subtle questioning in favor of direct accusation. She seemed genuinely hurt and confused by my suspicion. Why would I steal your makeup? We wear completely different foundation shades. That was absolutely true. Brittany was fair-skinned with cool undertones. I was medium-toned with warm undertones. Her foundation would look terrible on me, and mine would look orange on her. She pointed out that our makeup styles were totally different too. Brittany preferred dramatic looks with heavy black eyeliner and bold red lipstick. I wore minimal makeup most days, just mascara and lip gloss usually. Plus, I have my own makeup collection. Why would I need to take yours? Her logic was completely sound, and her hurt feelings seemed entirely genuine. She offered to help me organize my makeup collection so I could keep better track of everything I owned. We spent an entire hour arranging my remaining cosmetics in clear containers, sorting by type and frequency of use. Brittany was incredibly helpful and sympathetic throughout the process. She suggested that I'd probably misplace things during the chaos of suddenly sharing bedroom space. It's hard to keep track of everything when your routine gets completely disrupted, she said kindly. I'm always losing things when I'm stressed. I felt terrible for accusing her. She was being nothing but understanding and supportive about my apparent carelessness. But the thefts continued escalating despite my improved organization system and increased vigilance. My favorite sweater disappeared from our shared closet. It was a burgundy cashmere pullover that I'd gotten for Christmas and worn maybe 5 times total. I searched every inch of our room, the laundry area, and the rest of the house. The sweater had simply vanished into thin air. When I asked Brittany about it, she looked genuinely concerned and immediately offered to help me search again more thoroughly. Are you absolutely sure you didn't leave it at school or in your car? We checked both locations thoroughly. We looked through every piece of laundry in the house. We even checked if it had somehow fallen behind the washer and dryer. Nothing anywhere. Brittany suggested that maybe it had gotten mixed up with donations Mom sometimes made to local charities. Your mom mentioned taking clothes to Goodwill last weekend. Maybe it accidentally got included in those bags? Mom confirmed she'd donated several bags of old clothes, but insisted she'd been careful to take only items from her own closet. The sweater mystery remained completely unsolved. My wireless earbuds vanished next. I'd saved up for months to buy the expensive noise-canceling ones that cost over $200. I'd had them Thursday evening for my study session in the library. Friday morning, they were gone from my nightstand drawer. Brittany helped me search with apparent concern and genuine sympathy. She checked under beds, behind furniture, in laundry baskets, even inside pillowcases. Electronics are so easy to misplace. They're small and you use them everywhere. We spent 2 full hours searching every possible location in the house and my car. The earbuds had disappeared completely. Brittany suggested they might have fallen out of my backpack somewhere on campus. She offered to drive me around to retrace my steps from the previous day. We spent an entire afternoon checking classrooms, the library, the student center, even the parking lots where I'd walked. No earbuds anywhere. Maybe someone found them and turned them in to campus lost and found, Brittany suggested hopefully. We checked with campus security. Nothing had been turned in matching my description. I had to accept that $200 worth of earbuds were simply gone forever. Mom was getting increasingly annoyed with my constant complaints about missing belongings and my obvious suspicion of Brittany. Brittany is going out of her way to help you find things, Mom pointed out during one particularly frustrating conversation. Maybe you need to be more careful with your stuff. She suggested that sharing a room was teaching me valuable lessons about organization and personal responsibility. When I pointed out that nothing had ever gone missing before Brittany moved in, Mom accused me of being unwelcoming to our new family member. Brittany is sweet and helpful and grateful for our hospitality. You're acting paranoid and territorial over material possessions? The gaslighting was subtle but incredibly effective. I started questioning my own memory and organizational skills seriously. Maybe I really was becoming careless due to stress about suddenly sharing personal space. Maybe having a roommate was exposing flaws in my habits that I'd never noticed before. My hair straightener disappeared next, followed by my favorite leather jacket, then a pair of boots I'd only worn twice since buying them. Each time I reported something missing, Brittany was sympathetic and helpful. She assisted with thorough searches, offered logical explanations, and seemed genuinely concerned about my apparent carelessness. Each time, Mom grew more irritated with my complaints and more protective of Brittany's feelings. That girl is trying so hard to fit in here, and you're making her feel unwelcome over a few misplaced items. Richard stayed diplomatically neutral but clearly supported his daughter. He occasionally made gentle suggestions about better organization systems or being more careful with valuable items. The united front against me was becoming overwhelming and isolating. Things escalated dramatically when my laptop charger disappeared and I couldn't complete assignments. I'd specifically placed it on my desk Tuesday night, coiled neatly next to my textbooks. Wednesday morning, the desk was completely empty. I asked everyone in the house systematically. Mom hadn't seen it. Richard claimed he wouldn't recognize my charger from anyone else's. Brittany looked concerned and immediately offered to help search thoroughly. She was systematic and thorough, checking every room in the house methodically. She even offered to let me borrow her charger, though it wasn't compatible with my computer model. I'm so sorry I can't help more. Maybe we can find a universal adapter at the electronics store? Her thoughtfulness made me feel guilty for suspecting her of anything malicious. I had to spend $68 on a replacement charger, money I'd been carefully saving for next semester's textbooks. The expense stung financially, but I couldn't complete online assignments without it. That weekend brought a more serious and undeniable theft. $50 disappeared from my wallet while I was sleeping in the same room. I kept my wallet on my nightstand every single night, same spot for years. Friday night, it contained $67 in cash. Saturday morning, it held exactly $17. Perfect $50 theft with surgical precision. I'd been carefully tracking my spending since the previous cash disappearances. Every purchase was logged meticulously in my phone's notes app. I knew with absolute certainty that I hadn't spent that money anywhere. I confronted Brittany before she left for her part-time job at the mall jewelry store where she worked weekends. She looked absolutely shocked and deeply hurt that I would accuse her of stealing money from family members. I have my own job and make decent money. Why would I need to steal from you? She pointed out that she made $15 an hour at the jewelry store and received financial support from Richard whenever she needed extra money. When I mentioned the precise $50 amount missing, she suggested I might have spent it during a particularly stressful week and blocked out the memory. College students are notorious for impulse purchases they forget about later. Maybe you bought something online or grabbed dinner with friends without thinking. I checked my bank account statement and online purchase history thoroughly. No $50 transactions anywhere in recent weeks. But Brittany's explanations always sounded so reasonable, and her concern seemed so genuine that I started doubting myself again. I began keeping my wallet in different locations to test my theory about overnight theft. Under my pillow, zipped inside my backpack, locked in my desk drawer, money kept disappearing anyway with the same mathematical precision. $20 from inside my calculus textbook, $35 from my jacket pocket hanging in the closet, $15 from my car's cup holder where I kept emergency cash. Each theft was precisely timed for when I was out of the house for classes or sleeping deeply during the night. Brittany always had logical explanations for my losses. Maybe other family members were borrowing cash and forgetting to mention it. Perhaps I was spending money absent-mindedly during stressful periods. She suggested I start keeping detailed receipts for everything to track my spending more accurately and identify where money was actually going. Her helpfulness was starting to feel calculated and performative rather than genuinely concerned. Mom was definitely getting fed up with my constant accusations and increasingly obvious suspicion of Brittany's behavior. She called me into her bedroom for a serious conversation about jealousy and adjustment difficulties that I was apparently experiencing. Brittany is going through a major transition. Her parents' divorce was messy and traumatic. She's trying to find her place in a completely new family structure. Mom said I needed to be more understanding and welcoming instead of creating unnecessary drama over misplaced belongings and imagined theft. She suggested that my accusations were probably rooted in jealousy about suddenly sharing Mom's attention with new family members after years of having her to myself. Richard and Brittany aren't going anywhere. You need to learn to coexist peacefully instead of constantly creating conflict. She recommended that I focus on building positive relationships instead of constantly pointing fingers about missing items that I was probably misplacing myself. The conversation made me feel small, petty, and unreasonable. Maybe I really was being paranoid and territorial about sharing my space. Maybe the stress of suddenly having a roommate was harder than I'd realized, and I was subconsciously creating conflict to push Brittany away. I decided to give her the complete benefit of the doubt and stop making any accusations whatsoever. That resolution lasted exactly 3 days before my jewelry started disappearing. My grandmother's vintage ring vanished from my jewelry box overnight. The piece had belonged to my great-grandmother originally and was both financially and sentimentally irreplaceable. I searched everywhere frantically, checking every possible location multiple times. Under beds, behind dressers, in laundry baskets, even in the vacuum cleaner bag in case it had been accidentally sucked up. Absolutely nothing. When I asked Brittany about the ring, she looked appropriately horrified and immediately offered to help me look everywhere again. A family heirloom? Oh my god, we absolutely have to find it. We systematically tore apart our shared room together. Brittany was thorough and genuinely distressed, checking places I would never have thought to examine. She moved furniture, emptied drawers completely, and even checked inside pillowcases and between mattresses for anything small that might have fallen. Could it have fallen down a drain in the bathroom? Sometimes jewelry slips off when you're washing your hands. We checked every drain in the house with flashlights, looking for any glint of metal. Still nothing anywhere. Brittany sat on my bed looking defeated and sympathetic. I'm so sorry we can't find it. That ring sounds like it meant everything to you. Her sympathy seemed completely authentic, but the ring was still gone without explanation. More jewelry disappeared over the following weeks with the same mysterious pattern. The necklace I'd gotten for high school graduation. My favorite silver earrings that Dad had given me for my 18th birthday. Even my cheap costume jewelry started vanishing from the small bowl where I kept everyday pieces. Each disappearance prompted another helpful search session with Brittany. She was always willing to spend time looking and always had reasonable theories about what might have happened. Maybe I'd left the earrings at the gym after working out. Perhaps the necklace had broken and fallen off somewhere without me noticing. The costume jewelry might have gotten tangled up in laundry loads. Her explanations made perfect sense individually, but the cumulative pattern was becoming impossible to ignore or rationalize away. I started keeping a secret written log of everything that went missing. Dates, detailed descriptions, approximate values, and circumstances of each disappearance. The list grew longer every week, and the pattern was absolutely undeniable to anyone looking objectively. Cash from various hiding places around my room, makeup in shades that would work perfectly for someone with Brittany's exact coloring, clothing items that matched her size precisely, electronics that were compatible with her specific devices. But when I showed the comprehensive list to Mom, she accused me of obsessive behavior and paranoid record-keeping that was unhealthy. You're creating problems that don't exist. Brittany hasn't done anything wrong except try to fit into our family. Mom suggested that my detailed list-making was evidence of unhealthy fixation on material possessions, instead of focusing on relationships. She recommended that I concentrate on building family bonds and experiences, instead of constantly inventorying my belongings like a suspicious landlord. Richard and Brittany are good people who genuinely care about us. Stop looking for reasons to push them away. The conversation left me feeling crazy, isolated, and completely gaslit. Was I really being paranoid? Was stress making me imagine theft where none existed? But my instincts kept screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with this entire situation. Things escalated dramatically when my laptop disappeared entirely from my locked bedroom. I'd left it charging on my desk Thursday night, positioned exactly where I always kept it for easy access. Friday morning, the desk was completely empty. This wasn't a small item that could be misplaced, forgotten, or accidentally moved. This was a $1,500 computer that I absolutely needed for online classes and assignments. I searched the entire house methodically and systematically. Every room, every closet, every possible hiding place or storage area. The laptop had vanished completely without a trace. When I told Mom about the missing computer, she looked skeptical and annoyed rather than concerned or sympathetic. Are you sure you didn't take it somewhere and forget where you left it? I'd been home all evening working on assignments in my room. The laptop never left my desk area. Richard suggested that maybe someone had broken into the house during the night when we were all sleeping. Our neighborhood had experienced some minor break-ins recently according to local news reports, but nothing else was missing from anywhere in the house. Not Mom's expensive jewelry, not Richard's high-end electronics, not even Brittany's own laptop computer, just mine. When I pointed out how impossibly selective this supposed burglary had been, Mom accused me of being dramatic and paranoid about perfectly normal explanations. Maybe you should file an official police report if you're so absolutely certain it was stolen. I did exactly that, calling the non-emergency police line immediately. Officer Davis arrived Saturday afternoon to take my detailed statement and examine my room for evidence. He was professional but clearly doubtful about the theft claim based on the circumstances. Was there any sign of forced entry anywhere? Broken windows, damaged doors, picked locks? Everything was completely intact. Whoever had taken my laptop had full access to the house and my room. Officer Davis photographed my bedroom and took notes, but admitted that proving theft would be nearly impossible without witnesses or direct evidence of the crime. You might want to check with your insurance company about coverage for stolen electronics, he suggested practically. He also mentioned casually that I could install security cameras if I was genuinely concerned about ongoing theft in my home. That seemingly innocent suggestion planted an idea that would eventually change everything and expose the truth. I started researching hidden cameras online immediately, looking for something small and discreet that could record for long periods without being detected by whoever was stealing from me. The options were surprisingly sophisticated and affordable. Tiny devices disguised as regular household objects, capable of recording high-definition video for hours on battery power. I settled on a camera disguised as a USB charging block. It looked completely normal plugged into the wall, but could record continuously while appearing to charge devices. The camera cost $97, money I desperately needed for replacement textbooks, but I was desperate for proof of what I knew was happening. While waiting for the camera to arrive via expedited shipping, more items disappeared from my room with increasing boldness. My good winter coat vanished from our shared closet. The leather boots I'd gotten for Christmas were gone. Even my backup phone charger disappeared. Each theft prompted another concerned conversation with Brittany and another frustrated lecture from Mom about carelessness and paranoid behavior. Brittany's helpfulness was becoming a perfectly crafted performance. She always offered to help search extensively, always had reasonable explanations for losses, always seemed genuinely sympathetic about my apparent carelessness. But she was also always present when things went missing, and always had complete access to the exact locations where I kept valuable items. The camera arrived on a Tuesday via overnight shipping. I set it up that evening while Brittany was at her mall job, positioning it behind some textbooks on my shelf. The angle covered my desk area, dresser, and most of Brittany's side of our shared room. If she was stealing from me, I'd finally have undeniable proof. The first 2 days of recording showed absolutely nothing suspicious or concerning. Brittany came and went normally, doing homework, getting ready for work, sleeping peacefully in her bed. She seemed like a perfectly normal teenager, adjusting to a new living situation with appropriate respect for boundaries. I started wondering seriously if I really was losing my mind or becoming paranoid due to stress. Maybe the pressure of sharing space was making me imagine problems that didn't actually exist. But But Thursday evening's footage changed everything and validated every suspicious instinct I'd had. I was in my evening chemistry class when the camera captured Brittany's true behavior and criminal methodology. The footage showed her waiting exactly 15 minutes after I left the house, then methodically searching through my belongings with practiced, professional efficiency. She opened every drawer in my dresser, checking corners and hidden spaces systematically. She examined every pocket in my hanging clothes thoroughly. She went through my desk drawers item by item with careful precision. She found the $20 I'd hidden inside my organic chemistry textbook and pocketed it smoothly without hesitation. But that shocking discovery was just the beginning of what the camera revealed about Brittany's criminal behavior. The footage from 11:47 p.m. showed Brittany leaving our room quietly and returning 6 minutes later with something clutched in her hands, Mom's purse. I watched in absolute horror as Brittany sat on her bed and systematically went through Mom's wallet with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. She removed cash bills one by one, counting quietly under her breath. She photographed the front and back of Mom's driver's license with her phone camera. She carefully copied detailed information from Mom's credit cards into a small notebook, writing down account numbers, expiration dates, and 3-digit security codes from the back. She took $60 in cash and returned everything else to exactly the positions she'd found them in originally. Then she crept back downstairs and replaced Mom's purse in the kitchen exactly where it normally sat overnight. The entire theft and identity information gathering took less than 10 minutes and was executed with professional precision that suggested extensive experience. This wasn't impulsive teenage stealing or desperate need for quick cash. This was systematic identity theft preparation by someone who knew exactly what she was doing. My hands were shaking uncontrollably as I saved the video files to multiple secure locations, cloud storage, external drives, email attachments to myself. This evidence was too important and damaging to risk losing to technical problems. I also filmed my computer screen with my phone, creating backup documentation that couldn't be digitally altered or disputed later. Brittany wasn't just stealing my personal belongings for immediate use or resale. She was systematically preparing to steal Mom's entire financial identity and potentially destroy her credit and savings. I had to tell Mom immediately, but I knew she wouldn't want to believe what the evidence clearly showed. She'd spent months defending Brittany enthusiastically and criticizing my accusations harshly. Admitting I'd been right would mean accepting that she'd been completely manipulated and fooled. I waited until Friday morning when Richard was at his pharmaceutical sales job and Brittany was at her mall jewelry store position. Then I sat Mom down at the kitchen table and pulled out my laptop with trembling hands. I need to show you something and you're not going to want to believe it. Mom's expression was already defensive and skeptical. She'd heard too many of my complaints about Brittany over the past 3 months. If this is more paranoia about missing items, just watch the footage. I played the video evidence chronologically, starting with Brittany methodically searching through my personal belongings. Mom watched with growing discomfort as Brittany systematically violated my privacy and stole my carefully hidden money. Maybe she was looking for something of her own that got mixed up with your things during the move, Mom said weakly. Watch the rest of the footage. I played the devastating footage of Brittany with Mom's purse, stealing cash and documenting credit card information. Mom's face went completely white as she watched Brittany photograph her driver's license and copy her credit card details into that notebook. The cash theft was obvious and undeniable. The identity information gathering was absolutely terrifying in its implications. Oh my God, Mom whispered. How long has this been happening? I pulled out my comprehensive 3-month log of missing items. Over $800 in cash, electronics, jewelry, and personal belongings. All stolen systematically, while Mom had been defending Brittany enthusiastically and blaming me for carelessness and paranoid behavior. She's been planning identity theft, I said, pointing to the notebook footage. Look at how carefully she documented your credit card information. Mom stared at the video footage with growing horror, watching Brittany's systematic approach multiple times to fully absorb what she was seeing. This isn't her first time doing this, Mom realized. She's way too good at it, too organized and efficient. We called Officer Davis immediately. He arrived within 45 minutes and reviewed all the video evidence thoroughly. This is absolutely clear theft and identity fraud preparation, he confirmed, after watching the footage multiple times. We need to arrest her immediately before she can use that credit card information. Mom provided a complete list of her financial accounts so we could monitor for any fraudulent activity that might have already begun. Officer Davis noted that Brittany's methodical, professional approach suggested extensive experience with theft and fraud operations. This looks like someone who's done this before, probably multiple times with other victims. We decided to wait until both Richard and Brittany returned home from work to confront them together with the undeniable evidence. Richard arrived first at 6:15 p.m., cheerful and completely oblivious to the devastating situation waiting for him. Mom asked him to sit down for an urgent family discussion. His expression shifted to genuine concern when he saw Officer Davis sitting at our kitchen table with official paperwork. Is everyone okay? Did something serious happen to someone? Mom played the video footage without any preliminary explanation or context. Richard's face went through a visible, painful transformation as he watched his daughter systematically steal from our family. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then mounting anger, and finally a deep shame that seemed to age him 10 years in minutes. This can't be right, he said weakly. Brittany wouldn't steal from people who've welcomed her into their home with open arms. The footage is time-stamped and completely unedited, Officer Davis explained matter-of-factly. Your daughter committed theft and prepared for identity fraud. Richard tried desperately to make excuses and explanations. Brittany was struggling with her parents' messy divorce aftermath. She was having difficulty adjusting to a new family dynamic. Maybe this was a cry for help rather than malicious criminal behavior. Mom wasn't interested in psychological explanations or extenuating circumstances that might excuse criminal behavior. She's been stealing from my daughter for months while I defended her and blamed my own child for the losses. The weight of that realization was visibly crushing Mom. She'd chosen Brittany's word over mine repeatedly, dismissing my concerns and criticizing my character. Richard's shame deepened as he understood how his daughter had systematically manipulated our entire household's dynamics for criminal purposes. Brittany had played the perfect victim while methodically robbing us and destroying family relationships through calculated deception. Brittany arrived home from work at 6:45 p.m., bouncing through the front door with typical teenage energy and enthusiasm. She called out cheerful greetings to everyone and asked about dinner plans while heading toward the kitchen with shopping bags from her mall job. She stopped abruptly when she saw Officer Davis sitting at our table with his official notepad open and ready. What's going on? Is someone hurt or in trouble? Officer Davis stood formally and identified himself with his badge visible. Brittany Chen, you're under arrest for theft and conspiracy to commit identity fraud. Brittany's face cycled through emotions rapidly and transparently. Confusion, genuine fear, desperate calculation, and finally cold defiance. I don't know what you're talking about. There must be some mistake. Officer Davis turned his tablet toward her and played 30 seconds of the most incriminating footage available. Brittany watched herself steal money from Mom's wallet and photograph credit card information with systematic precision. Her shoulders sagged visibly as she realized there was no possible explanation or excuse for what the video clearly showed. It's not what it looks like. It looks exactly like theft and fraud preparation, Officer Davis said while retrieving handcuffs from his belt. Brittany turned to Richard with desperate appeal and panic in her eyes. Dad, tell them this is a misunderstanding. I can explain everything if they'll just listen. Richard couldn't meet her gaze. His voice was quiet and completely defeated. How could you do this to people who opened their home to us? I needed money for things. You never give me enough allowance for what I actually need. So you decided to steal from people who've been nothing but kind and welcoming to you? Brittany's sweet facade finally cracked completely, revealing someone angry and entitled underneath the performance. They have way more money than they actually need. It's not like they'd miss a few dollars here and there. Mom's voice cut through the kitchen like sharp ice. I missed hundreds of dollars over months, and you made me blame my own daughter for your systematic crimes. Brittany sneered with unexpected venom that revealed her true personality. Your daughter is a spoiled brat who gets everything handed to her without working for it. My daughter works 2 jobs to pay for college while you steal from family members who trusted you. Officer Davis finished reading Miranda rights and guided Brittany toward the front door with her hands cuffed behind her back. She turned back to Richard one final time, switching back to manipulation mode desperately. You're really going to choose them over your own blood? Richard's response was quiet but absolutely final. You chose theft over honesty. You made this choice for all of us. The front door closed behind them with devastating finality. Richard and Mom sat in complete shocked silence for several long minutes, processing what had just happened to our family. Finally, Richard spoke. I'm so incredibly sorry. I had absolutely no idea she was capable of this level of deception and criminal behavior. How could you not know? Mom asked. This was systematic theft over months with careful planning. Richard admitted that Brittany had always been challenging and manipulative, even before her parents' divorce. Her mother had spoiled her extensively after the separation, giving her money whenever she complained or demanded it. He'd hoped that structure, boundaries, and consequences would help her develop better character and work ethic. Instead, she'd simply learned to steal systematically what she couldn't manipulate out of people anymore. Has she done this before? Mom asked directly. Richard's long silence was answer enough. He eventually confessed that Brittany had been caught stealing from classmates during her senior year of high school. The private school had handled it quietly to avoid affecting her graduation and college prospects. He'd hoped it was just teenage acting out that she'd naturally grow out of with maturity and better influences. There had also been money missing from his own wallet occasionally over the past year, but Brittany always had convincing explanations. Emergency expenses, forgotten purchases, money borrowed and forgotten about. He'd wanted to believe her because the alternative meant accepting that his only child was a systematic thief. She's my only child, Richard said sadly. I kept making excuses because I didn't want to face the truth about her character. That evening, we spent hours carefully checking all of Mom's financial accounts for signs of fraudulent activity or unauthorized transactions. Brittany hadn't had time to actually use the credit card information yet, but she'd photographed everything necessary for complete identity theft. We placed fraud alerts on every single account and canceled all of Mom's credit cards as a precautionary measure against future theft. The bank representative who helped us was sympathetic, but unfortunately not surprised. Identity theft by family members was becoming increasingly common. We calculated the total value of items stolen from my room over 3 months. The cash alone exceeded $400. Missing electronics, jewelry, and clothing brought the total documented loss to over $800. That didn't include the irreplaceable sentimental value of items like my grandmother's ring. Richard offered immediately to pay for everything Brittany had stolen, but Mom said money couldn't repair the damage to family trust and relationships. Your daughter manipulated all of us, Mom said. She made me doubt my own child while she systematically robbed us. Brittany spent 2 nights in county jail before Richard posted bail using money from his retirement savings account. The conditions of her release included staying completely away from our house and having absolutely no contact with Mom or me. Her belongings were packed in boxes and waiting on our front porch when Richard came to collect them. Richard looked aged and defeated as he loaded everything into his BMW trunk. I'll find an apartment for us this weekend, he told Mom. I can't ask you to deal with this situation. You're not asking, Mom replied, but I understand why you have to go. Richard wanted desperately to maintain his relationship with Mom despite Brittany's crimes, but the situation had become completely impossible. He couldn't abandon his daughter, even though she'd betrayed everyone who'd tried to help her. Mom couldn't risk having Brittany anywhere near our house again, even with constant supervision. Richard moved out that same afternoon, taking only his personal belongings and leaving behind any hope of our families blending successfully. The house felt empty and quiet after they left, but also genuinely safe and peaceful for the first time in months. I moved back into my full bedroom immediately and changed all the door locks in the house as a security precaution. 2 weeks later, Brittany's preliminary court hearing resulted in formal charges of theft and attempted identity fraud. She was looking at potential jail time if convicted, plus mandatory restitution for everything she'd stolen from our family. Her court-appointed lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal involving probation and counseling instead of jail time. The prosecutor was willing to consider reduced charges if Brittany showed genuine remorse and paid full restitution immediately. Brittany's response was to maintain her complete innocence despite video evidence of her crimes. She claimed the footage was somehow fake or taken out of context. She insisted that any money she'd taken was borrowed with permission that I'd forgotten about. Her total lack of accountability made plea negotiations impossible. The case went to trial 3 months later. I testified about the systematic theft and presented my detailed log of missing items to the jury. Mom testified about having her identity information stolen. The video footage was played multiple times for the jury. Brittany Brittany's theft was captured clearly from multiple angles with perfect timing and lighting. Her defense attorney tried arguing that she was a troubled teenager acting out due to family trauma from her parents' divorce. The prosecutor presented evidence that Brittany's theft was calculated and experienced, not impulsive teenage rebellion or emotional crisis. The methodical approach, the systematic documentation of credit cards, the months of careful planning, all pointed to someone with extensive criminal experience. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Brittany was sentenced to 18 months in state prison plus 3 years of supervised probation. She was ordered to pay complete restitution for all stolen items, though we never expected to see most of that money returned. When the judge read the sentence, I finally felt like the weight I'd been carrying for months wasn't mine anymore. The missing money, the stolen clothes, the ruined trust, it was all laid out in court for everyone to see, undeniable and permanent. For once, nobody could call me paranoid. Walking out of that courthouse, I realized Brittany hadn't just stolen from us. She'd exposed everyone's blind spots. Mom learned the cost of ignoring red flags. Richard had to face the truth about his daughter. And me, I learned that trusting my instincts wasn't weakness. It was survival. Our house felt different after that. Quieter, safer. The locks on the doors finally meant something again. And while Brittany walked into prison with nothing but excuses, I walked back into my life with something she could never take from me: peace, and the certainty that the truth will always outlast the lies.